You work late, wake up early, put in overtime, and yet when you look at your bank account at the end of the month, you feel that tightness in your chest. You pray, you fast, you tithe, but prosperity always seems to stay one step ahead. And then you wonder, doesn't God want to bless me financially? Does being spiritual mean accepting mediocrity? I am Solomon, and I need to tell you something that's going to hurt a little, but could change your life forever. For years, you've been taught that hard work is the key to wealth, that breaking your back, making sacrifices, and hustling is what separates winners from losers. But look around you. How many people do you know who work like slaves and remain broke? How many godly men live exhausted, in debt, frustrated, even though they give their blood every single day? The truth is, you don't need to work harder. You need to think differently. When I was the richest man in the world, I learned that wealth doesn't come from blind effort. It comes from wisdom. It comes from understanding how money really works, how God designed prosperity, and how to stop sabotaging your own abundance with unconscious decisions you make every day. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why so many spiritual men remain poor, even while serving the God who created all the gold in the world. I'm going to tell you about the deadly trap of impulsive consumption that keeps you trapped in a cycle of scarcity. And I'm going to give you the same formula I used to accumulate more wealth than any king in history, adapted to work today in the 21st century. But be warned, this isn't a video for those who want magic formulas or prosperity without character. It's for those who are ready to take responsibility for living like a king, ruling money instead of being ruled by it. If you feel it's time to stop surviving and start truly prospering, subscribe to this channel now, because what you're about to hear here could be the turning point between the life you have and the life God always wanted you to live. The question is, are you ready to discover what kind of king you really are? Number 1. The curse of working hard and staying poor. You wake up at 5 in the morning, take a cold shower, say a quick prayer, and head out for another day of battle. 12 hours later, you come home exhausted, with your back aching and your soul heavy. You look in the mirror and see a man who's aging too fast, a man who works like an ox but lives like a slave. And there, in the solitude of your room, comes that question you don't have the courage to ask out loud. Why do I work so hard and remain poor? This question haunted me for many years of my reign. I observed my subjects. I saw honest men, God-fearing men, who rose before the sun and only stopped when the moon was high. Men who never stole, never lied, never broke their word. And yet, these men lived paycheck to paycheck, worried, always one step behind their bills. Meanwhile, I saw other men, vain, superficial, who seemed to prosper without the same effort. Men who slept in, made questionable deals, who didn't have the same character. And they were swimming in abundance. This bothered me deeply. Where was God's justice? Why did good men suffer while empty men prospered? It was then that God gave me a revelation that forever changed my understanding of work and wealth. The problem wasn't the quantity of work. The problem was the quality of wisdom. Many men confuse effort with direction. They believe that sweating more equals earning more. But that's a lie the modern world has sold you. Imagine a man who decides to cut wood to sell. He wakes up early, grabs his axe, and starts hitting the tree with all his strength. He strikes and strikes and strikes. Sweat pours down his face, his muscles ache, his hands bleed. He works all day without stopping, but the axe is dull. The blade won't cut. And at the end of the day, after all that effort, the tree is still standing. On the other side of the forest, there's another man. He also wants to cut wood. But before he starts, he sharpens his axe. He studies the tree. He sees where it's weakest. He plans each strike, and in 2 hours, the tree is down. That's the difference between working with force and working with wisdom. The first man made much more effort, sweated much more, spent much more energy, but the second man had much more results. Why? Because he understood that it's not the intensity of work that determines success. It's the direction of work. And here's the truth that's going to hurt. You may be swinging your axe without realizing it's dull. You might be hitting the wrong tree, with the wrong tool, in the wrong place, at the wrong time. And all your effort, all your dedication, all your sweat is being wasted because no one ever taught you the difference between working hard and working smart. Let me tell you a real story that happened in my kingdom. There were two builders. Both received the task of building a house in 6 months. The first builder was known for his work ethic. He worked from sunrise to sunset. He didn't even stop for lunch. He carried stones on his back, mixed cement with his own hands, raised walls brick by brick. Everyone in the city respected him. They said, "This is a real man. This one knows what work is." The second builder was viewed with suspicion. He arrived later, stopped to rest, sometimes spent hours just observing the land. But this man did something different. He studied the soil before starting. He hired helpers to carry heavy materials. He organized a system to mix cement faster. He planned each stage of construction before beginning. Result? The first builder, after 6 months of slave labor, had to rebuild the house 3 times because the foundations were wrong. He spent twice the materials, twice the time, and nearly broke his back. The second builder delivered the house on time with superior quality, using fewer materials and less energy. The difference wasn't in the quantity of work. It was in the quality of thinking that preceded the work. Now look at your life. How many years have you been swinging the same hammer, in the same place, the same way? How many years have you been waking up, going to work, coming home, and repeating everything the next day, hoping that somehow the result will be different? That's not perseverance. That's insanity. The modern world has created a sick culture they call hustle. They romanticize exhaustion. They make you believe that if you're not suffering, you're not working. They sell the idea that sleep is for the weak, that rest is for the lazy, that stopping to think is a waste of time. And you bought that lie. But I ask you, where are the results of this philosophy? Where is the prosperity they promised? Where is the financial freedom that would come with all this sacrifice? The truth is that this mentality has turned you into a hamster on a wheel. You run and run and run, but never get anywhere. You know what the biggest deception you believe is? That God wants you to be poor, to be holy, that poverty is a sign of spirituality, that wealth is sin. That's blasphemy against God's character. God didn't create a world of abundance for you to live in scarcity. He didn't give you a brain, talents, abilities for you to be mediocre. He didn't make you in His image for you to accept crumbs. Poverty is not virtue. Poverty is consequence. Consequence of bad decisions, lack of knowledge, absence of wisdom. And when you confuse poverty with holiness, you're rejecting the principles God established to generate provision in your life. Here's the shift you need to make in your mind. Stop measuring your worth by your sweat. Start measuring your worth by your results. Stop taking pride in working 16 hours a day. Start taking pride in solving problems intelligently. Stop competing to see who's most tired. Start competing to see who's most efficient. The wise man doesn't work more. He works better. He doesn't sweat more. He thinks more. He doesn't strain more. He organizes more. And at the end of the day, while the fool is exhausted and broke, the wise man is rested and prosperous. You want practical advice? Stop everything you're doing right now and ask these questions. Where am I wasting energy? Where am I working hard when I should be working smart? Where am I repeating mistakes because I never stopped to learn from them? Where am I being driven by haste when I should be driven by strategy? Starting today, every time you're about to begin a task, a job, a project, stop for 5 minutes and ask, is there a smarter way to do this? Is there a better tool? Is there a different approach? Is there someone who's already done this and can teach me? Those 5 minutes of reflection can save 5 hours of unnecessary work. Those 5 minutes of planning can prevent 5 days of rework. Those 5 minutes of humility to learn can generate 5 years of advantage over your competitors. Because the truth is this: while most men are chasing the wind, the wise man is building windmills to capture that wind. and transform it into energy. While most are fighting against the current, the wise man is building boats that use the current to reach the destination faster. You don't need to work like a slave to prosper like a king. You need to think like a king to prosper like a king. Number 2, wealth as result, not as miracle. How many times have you knelt before God asking for a financial miracle? How many times have you prayed for money to appear out of nowhere, for bills to pay themselves, for provision to fall from heaven like manna in the desert? And how many times were you frustrated when that miracle didn't happen? How many times did you question whether God really loves you, whether He really cares about your needs, whether He really wants to see you prosper? I understand that frustration because I've been there too. Before I became the richest man in history, I was just a young man who had inherited a kingdom in crisis. The people were disorganized, the economy was broken, enemies were approaching, and I had no idea how to solve it all. That night, when God appeared to me in a dream and said He would give me anything I asked for, I could have asked for gold. I could have asked for vaults overflowing with gold, caravans brimming with riches, silver mines. I could have asked for the financial miracle every broke man dreams of receiving. But something inside me knew that would be a mistake. You know what I asked for? Wisdom. I asked for understanding to govern well, discernment to make right decisions, intelligence to solve complex problems. And you know what happened? God gave me the wisdom I asked for. But along with it came something I hadn't asked for: wealth. It wasn't coincidence. It was consequence. Wealth wasn't the miracle. Wisdom was the miracle. Wealth was just the natural result of applying that wisdom in practice. And here's the truth most people don't understand. God isn't in the business of creating money out of nothing. He's in the business of teaching you to create value. He doesn't want to give you fish. He wants to teach you to fish. He doesn't want to give you gold. He wants to teach you the principles that generate gold. But what do most Christians do? They pray for the fish. They fast for the gold. They prophesy about supernatural provision. And when that provision doesn't come, they get frustrated with God. They think He's not keeping His part. They think their faith is insufficient. They think there's something wrong with them. The truth is, there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with your approach. You're asking God to do what He's already given you resources to do. It's like asking Him to breathe for you when He's already given you lungs. It's like asking Him to walk for you when He's already given you legs. God gave you a brain. He gave you talents. He gave you abilities. He gave you opportunities. He gave you time. He gave you energy. He gave you relationships. And He's waiting for you to use all of this to create the prosperity you so desire. He won't do for you what He's already equipped you to do. Let me tell you how it worked in my kingdom. When someone came to me asking for a loan, I didn't give money. I asked questions. What's your plan? How will you use this money? How will you pay it back? What guarantees do you have? What results do you expect? And you know what I discovered? Most people had no answers. They wanted money, but didn't know what to do with it. They wanted provision, but had no vision. They wanted harvest, but had no seed. And then they were offended when I didn't give the money. They thought I was stingy, that I had no compassion. But I had learned something fundamental. Giving money to someone who doesn't know how to use it isn't generosity. It's cruelty. It's like giving a weapon to a child. They might hurt themselves. It's like giving alcohol to an alcoholic. He might destroy himself. It's like giving food to someone who's been starving for weeks. He might die from indigestion. God doesn't multiply chaos. He multiplies seeds. And a seed isn't just money. A seed is a well-structured plan. It's a clear vision. It's a solid strategy. It's an integral character. It's consistent discipline. It's active faith. It's an attitude of responsibility. When you put all these elements together, then you have a seed that God can multiply. But if you don't have any of these things, why do you expect God to work miracles in your financial life? Let me give you a practical example that happened in my time. There were two merchants in the same city. Both sold fabrics. Both were God-fearing men. Both prayed and fasted, asking for prosperity. But the results were completely different. The first merchant opened his store every day, put fabrics in the window, and waited for customers to show up. When the end of the month came and sales were low, he concluded that God wasn't blessing his business. He intensified prayers, did more fasts, increased offerings at church, but nothing changed. The second merchant also prayed and fasted, but besides that, he did other things. He studied which fabrics were most sought after. He talked to customers to understand their needs. He improved the store's appearance. He offered payment facilities. He visited other merchants in other cities to learn new techniques. He invested in relationships. Result? The first merchant remained broke, blaming God for lack of provision. The second merchant prospered, thanking God for the wisdom that enabled him to prosper. The difference wasn't in the quantity of faith, it was in the quality of action. While the first expected God to act alone, the second realized God had already equipped him to act, and now it was his turn to do his part. And here's the point you need to understand. Faith without works is dead. Prayer without action is fantasy. Fasting without planning is waste of time. You can pray all day, but if you don't organize your finances, you'll remain disorganized. You can fast all week, but if you don't control your spending, you'll keep spending more than you earn. You can prophesy all month, but if you don't learn to invest, you'll remain poor. God isn't your business partner. He's your mentor. He won't do the work for you. He'll teach you how to do the work better. He won't give you money. He'll give you wisdom to earn money. He won't pay your bills. He'll equip you to pay your own bills. And you know what's beautiful about this? When you learn to fish, you never go hungry again. When you learn the principles of prosperity, you never depend on financial miracles again. When you develop skills to generate wealth, you become a source of provision, not just a receiver of provision. Stop praying to win the lottery. Start praying for wisdom to start a business. Stop praying to find money on the street. Start praying for intelligence to create value. Stop praying for others to give you money. Start praying to have the capacity to generate your own money. Here's your turning point. Accept that God has already done his part. He created you with a brain. He gave you talents. He placed you in a world full of opportunities. He connected you with people who can help you. He gave you enough time to learn and grow. Now it's your turn to do your part. Start by organizing what you already have. Stop complaining about what you don't have and start using well what you do have. Do you have $10? Use those $10 wisely. Do you have a skill? Develop that skill. Do you have a relationship? Cultivate that relationship. Do you have an idea? Execute that idea. Wealth won't fall from heaven. It will sprout from the ground where you plant seeds of wisdom, water with discipline, and harvest with patience. And when that happens, you'll understand that the real miracle wasn't the money that came. The real miracle was the transformation that happened in you so that you became the type of person who attracts and multiplies wealth. Because in the end, God doesn't just want to give you wealth. He wants to transform you into the type of person who deserves wealth, who knows how to handle wealth, who uses wealth to bless others. And that doesn't happen overnight. It happens one day at a time, one decision at a time, one seed at a time. Number 3, the addiction to consumption and the deception of appearance. You know this feeling? You're walking down the street and see someone with a car nicer than yours. Suddenly, your car, which was serving you perfectly well until that moment, seems old, ugly, inadequate. You feel a pang of shame, an urgent need to improve your image. And before you know it, you're at the dealership, signing a financing agreement that will tighten your budget for the next 5 years. Or maybe it's clothes. You go on social media and see your acquaintances always well-dressed, always with new clothes, always looking prosperous. And you look at your wardrobe and feel you urgently need to renew your look, that you need to project an image of success, that you need to look like someone who made it. This need to appear rich is destroying more lives than any known addiction. And the worst part is that this is a socially acceptable drug. No one will stop you on the street to say you have a consumption problem. On the contrary, society will congratulate you for doing well in life. But I'm going to tell you the naked truth about this trap. I'm going to show you how this obsession with appearances is stealing your freedom, your peace, your future, and your dignity. And I know what I'm talking about because I fell into this trap myself. When I was young and had just become king, I felt enormous pressure to demonstrate prosperity. After all, how would the people trust a poor king? How would other kings respect me if I didn't demonstrate wealth? How would I establish authority without the symbols of power? So, I started building bigger and bigger palaces, more and more exuberant gardens, more and more impressive armies, and it worked. The people were impressed. Other kings were envious. I felt powerful. But there was a problem. To maintain this image, I needed to spend more than I earned. I needed to raise taxes. I needed to borrow money. I needed to make questionable deals. And slowly, real prosperity was being replaced by the appearance of prosperity. Until one day, I looked into my people's eyes and saw something that deeply disturbed me. They were working like slaves to sustain my image of a prosperous king. They were sacrificing themselves so I could look successful, and I realized I had become exactly what I most despised, a man who lives off the sweat of others. That's when I understood a fundamental truth about consumption and appearance. They're like a seductive prostitute. They promise pleasure, satisfaction, admiration. They whisper in your ear that you deserve the best, that you have the right to feel special, that you need to do well in life, and you believe these promises. But after you give in, after you make the purchase, after you sign the contract, the real price appears. And that price isn't just money, it's anxiety, it's insomnia, it's destroyed relationships, it's lost dignity, it's mortgaged future, it's sold freedom. Because the truth is, when you live to impress others, you become a slave to others' opinions. When you spend money, you don't have to buy things, you don't need to impress people who don't care about you. You're trading your soul for a few crumbs of social approval. And the most tragic part is that this approval is temporary. Today you impress someone with your new car. Tomorrow, that same person will see a better car and you'll be invisible again. Today you get attention with your expensive clothes. Tomorrow, fashion changes and you'll need to spend again to stay relevant. It's an endless cycle. It's a race that never ends. It's a thirst that's never quenched, because the need to appear rich doesn't come from lack of money. It comes from lack of identity. It comes from the inner emptiness you're trying to fill with external things. Let me tell you about a man I knew in my days as king. He was a merchant and had a prosperous business. He earned well, had a beautiful family, lived in a comfortable house. But he didn't feel sufficient. He saw other merchants with bigger stores, with more employees, with more traffic, and he felt small. So he decided to expand. He took loans to rent a bigger store. He bought more expensive merchandise. He hired more employees. He moved to a bigger house. He bought finer clothes. He started throwing more elaborate parties. And for a while, he felt important. People greeted him on the street. They talked about his success. He felt respected. But the numbers didn't add up. The bigger store had bigger costs. The more expensive merchandise didn't necessarily sell more. The extra employees didn't generate extra income. And the loans had interest that grew every month. He started having sleepless nights. He started fighting with his wife about money. He started missing payments. He started taking new loans to pay old loans. And in less than 2 years, he lost everything. The store, the house, his dignity, and almost lost his family. But you know what was most painful for him? Discovering that the people who praised him when he was spending weren't there when he needed help. The people who admired him for his appearance of success disappeared when the appearance crumbled. He had sacrificed his real security for false admiration. And here's the truth: no one tells you. The people you're trying to impress don't really care about you. They admire your possessions, not your person. They respect your status, not your character. They envy how you look, not who you truly are. And when your possessions run out, when your status changes, when your appearance falls apart, these people simply look elsewhere. So why are you killing yourself to impress people who don't care about you? Why are you mortgaging your future to buy approval from people who will forget you at the first difficulty? Why are you trading your peace of mind for a few moments of superficial admiration? Consumption isn't just a financial problem. It's a spiritual problem. It's an identity problem. When you seek your validation in the things you own, you're saying you don't believe you're worth anything by yourself. You're saying your personality isn't enough. Your character isn't enough. You aren't enough. But that's a lie. You are enough. You've always been enough. You don't need an expensive car to be respected. You don't need designer clothes to be admired. You don't need a big house to be valued. You just need to be yourself in the best way possible. And you know what the irony is? The richest people I knew during my reign were exactly those who least cared about appearances. They drove simple cars, wore comfortable clothes, lived in functional houses. Why? Because they understood that money isn't for spending. Money is for investing. Money isn't for impressing. Money is for giving security. They had discovered something most people never discover. True wealth isn't in appearing rich. True wealth is in being free. Free from others' opinions. Free from the pressure to maintain appearances. Free from the anxiety of monthly payments. Free from the fear of losing what you shouldn't have bought in the first place. Here's your turning point. Stop measuring your worth by your possessions and start measuring your possessions by your freedom. With every purchase you're about to make, ask, will this give me more freedom or less freedom? Will this bring me closer to my financial independence or take me further from it? Will this give me peace or will it give me anxiety? And more importantly, stop comparing yourself to others. Other people's lives on social media are a showcase. It's an edited, filtered, improved version of reality. You're comparing your real life to others' fake life. You're competing in a race where other competitors are wearing masks. Start living for yourself, not for the audience. Start buying what you need, not what others expect you to have. Start building real wealth, not appearance of wealth. Because in the end, when you're on your deathbed, no one will remember the car you drove, but you'll remember the freedom you conquered or the slavery you chose. The choice is yours. Do you want to appear rich or do you want to be free? Number 4, Solomon's intimate confession about the emptiness of wealth. Today I'm going to do something kings don't usually do. I'm going to take off my crown, step down from the throne, and speak to you as one man would speak to another. I'm going to tell you about the pain that lives in the heart of the richest man in history, about the emptiness I discovered at the height of my abundance, about the weight that wealth can become when it loses its purpose. Because you need to understand something. I had everything, literally everything. I had more gold than any man before or after me. I had palaces that were considered wonders of the world. I had an army that made kings tremble. I had women who were considered the most beautiful on earth. I had wisdom that attracted visitors from the ends of the earth. I had power that shaped the destiny of nations. And yet, there were moments in my life when I felt like the poorest man in the world. You might be thinking, how is that possible? How can someone who had everything feel empty? How can someone who could buy anything feel unsatisfied? How can someone who had the world at his feet feel lost? The answer will shock you, because I confused having with being, because I confused possessing with belonging, because I confused wealth with identity, and that confusion almost destroyed me. Let me tell you about a specific night I'll never forget. I was in my room, alone, looking out the window at my palace gardens. I could see the golden fountains, the silver statues, the trees planted especially for me. I could hear musicians playing melodies composed especially to please me. I could smell the most expensive perfumes in the world. And in that moment, I asked myself a question that changed my life. Who am I without all this? If I took away the gold, if I took away the palace, if I took away the power, if I took away the fame, what would be left of me? And the answer terrified me. I didn't know. I had spent so much time being the rich king that I had forgotten how to be just Solomon. I had spent so much time defining my identity by the things I owned that I had lost track of who I really was. I had become a slave to what should serve me. And there, in the middle of all that wealth, I felt like a beggar. Not a beggar for money, but a beggar for meaning. Not a beggar for possessions, but a beggar for purpose. Not a beggar for gold, but a beggar for soul. Because the truth is, when you define your identity by what you have, you live in constant fear of losing who you are. When your self-esteem depends on your assets, any threat to your assets becomes a threat to your existence. When your worth as a person is tied to the value of your possessions, you can never relax, never rest, never simply be. I lived in fear of losing wealth, fear that other kings would surpass me, fear that my people would discover that behind all that magnificence was a fragile, insecure man who didn't know who he was when no one was watching. And the worst part, I was alone, completely alone. I had 1,000 servants, but no true friend. I was surrounded by thousands of courtiers, but no one who really knew me. I had 700 wives and 300 concubines, but none who loved me for who I was, without the crown. Everyone around me loved what I represented, not what I was. They loved the king, not the man. They loved the power, not the person. They loved the benefits of being near me, not my company. And I knew it. I knew that if I lost everything tomorrow, they would disappear like mist in the wind. This is the burden of wealth without direction. It attracts false people and drives away true relationships. It gives you many acquaintances and no friends. It gives you many admirers and no confidants. It surrounds you with people, but leaves you completely isolated. And then I started doing desperate things to try to fill this emptiness. I built increasingly grandiose projects. I accumulated more and more wealth. I sought increasingly intense pleasures. I experimented with different philosophies. I delved into deep studies. I gave myself to endless parties. But nothing worked. Because I was trying to solve an inside problem with outside solutions. I was trying to heal a soul wound with body remedies. I was trying to fill an existential hole with material things. And that's when I wrote those words many know, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. Because I had discovered that when you lose purpose, everything becomes empty. When you lose identity, everything becomes meaningless. When you lose connection to what really matters, everything becomes a chase after wind. Let me give you a concrete example. I had a garden with the rarest trees in the world. I spent fortunes bringing them from distant countries. I hired the best gardeners to care for them. I visited this garden every day, proud of my creation. But one day, I was walking through this garden and saw a simple man from my people watering a small vegetable garden behind his modest house. And there was something in this man's face that I hadn't seen in my own face for a long time. Peace, satisfaction, purpose. He was caring for those simple plants to feed his family. He had a reason to be there. He knew why he was doing it. And I asked myself, why did I build this garden? To impress visitors? To demonstrate power? To satisfy my ego? And I realized I didn't know. I had built something magnificent, but empty of meaning. I had created a work of art without soul. In that moment, I understood something fundamental. Wealth without purpose becomes a burden. Power without direction becomes a load. Abundance without meaning becomes a prison. Because when you have everything, but don't know why, everything transforms into nothing. The poor man with purpose is richer than the rich man without purpose. The simple man who knows who he is worth more than the millionaire who lost his identity. The man who has little but lives with meaning is more prosperous than the man who has much but lives in emptiness. And here's the most painful confession I can make. I came to envy poor people. I looked at simple shepherds caring for their sheep and felt envious of their simplicity. I looked at craftsmen creating things with their own hands and felt envious of their satisfaction. I looked at family men working to support their children and felt envious of their purpose. Because they knew why they woke up in the morning. They knew what they lived for. They knew their place in the world. And I, the richest man on earth, knew none of this. That's when I learned the most important lesson of my life. You need to know who you are before you know what you want. You need to define your identity before you define your goals. You need to discover your purpose before you discover your prosperity. Because when you know who you are, wealth becomes a tool to express your identity. When you know what you live for, money becomes a means to fulfill your purpose. When you have clarity about your values, prosperity becomes a platform to impact the world. But when you don't know who you are, wealth becomes your master. When you have no purpose, money becomes an addiction. When you have no identity, possessions become your prison. So, before seeking wealth, seek identity. Before chasing money, chase meaning. Before accumulating goods, accumulate wisdom about who you are and why you're here. Because I can guarantee you, it's better to be a poor man who knows who he is than a rich man who lost himself. It's better to have little with purpose than to have much without direction. It's better to live a simple life with meaning than to live a grand life in emptiness. Wealth comes and goes. Power rises and falls. Fame appears and disappears. But who you are, that no one can take from you, that's the only truly safe treasure you can accumulate in this life. Number 5. Solomon's practical plan to get rich with wisdom. We've reached the moment you've been waiting for. After I've exposed your wounds, questioned your beliefs, and confronted your illusions, now I'm going to give you something concrete. I'm going to deliver the plan I used to become the richest man in history, not because I was lucky, not because I was born with a silver spoon, but because I learned eternal principles that work in any era, anywhere, for anyone willing to apply them. But before I give you this plan, I need to warn you, this isn't a magic formula. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not a trick that will transform your life overnight. It's a system, a process, a way of living that, applied consistently over time, will take you from scarcity to abundance. If you're looking for shortcuts, stop reading now. If you want results without discipline, close this video. If you believe you can reap without sowing, this plan isn't for you. But if you're willing to trade immediate gratification for lasting reward, if you have the courage to do today what others don't want to do to have tomorrow what others will never have, then continue with me. The first principle of my plan is this: have a clear vision, not a fantasy, not a vague dream, a specific, detailed, written vision, reviewed daily. I knew exactly what kind of kingdom I wanted to build. I knew what kind of palace I wanted to live in. I knew what kind of life I wanted to live. And more importantly, I knew why. You need to know where you want to go before taking the first step. You need to define your destination before plotting your route. You need to have clarity about your goals before defining your strategies. Because a man without vision is like a ship without a compass. He can sail for years and never get anywhere. Sit down today and write, where do you want to be financially in 5 years? How much do you want to earn per month? How much do you want to have invested? What kind of life do you want to live? And more importantly, why do you want this? What's the purpose behind prosperity? The second principle is, plan meticulously. I didn't build my kingdom by chance. Every decision was thought through. Every investment was calculated. Every move was strategic. I had plans for 1 year, for 5 years, for 10 years. I knew how much I needed to earn, how much I needed to save, how much I needed to invest to reach each goal. Most people fail financially because they plan their vacations more carefully than they plan their lives. They spend hours choosing a restaurant for dinner, but don't spend even an hour planning their retirement. They research prices before buying shoes, but don't research investments before putting their money in. Make a real budget, not that fantasy budget that only exists on paper. A real budget based on your real income and your real expenses. Know exactly where every penny of your money goes. Control your finances, or they will control you. The third principle is, learn constantly. I didn't become wise by chance. I studied. I sought mentors. I asked questions. I read everything available. I traveled to learn from other kings. I brought experts from other countries to teach me. I invested in knowledge before investing in anything else. The man who stops learning today will be outdated tomorrow. The world changes, opportunities change, methods change. If you don't keep up with these changes, you'll be left behind. Read books about finance. Watch videos about investments. Take courses about entrepreneurship. Surround yourself with people who know more than you. And here's a secret few know. Learn before you need to. Learn about investments before you have money to invest. Learn about business before opening a business. Learn about leadership before leading a team. Because when opportunity appears, you'll be prepared to take advantage of it. The fourth principle is diversify your income sources. I didn't depend only on kingdom taxes. I had investments in international trade. I had partnerships with other kings. I had participation in caravans. I had lands that produced food. I had mines that produced precious metals. If one source dried up, the others would continue flowing. Financial security doesn't come from earning a lot from one source. It comes from earning well from several sources. Develop skills that can generate income beyond your main job. Create a side business. Invest in different types of assets. Have multiple income options so you never depend on just one. And remember, it's easier to earn $1,000 from 10 different sources than to earn $10,000 from one source. It's safer to have 10 clients who pay $100 each than to have one client who pays $1,000. Diversification isn't just protection against risk, it's multiplication of opportunities. The fifth principle is manage your time like it's gold, because it's more valuable than gold. You can earn more money, but you can't earn more time. I had specific schedules for each activity. Time to govern, time to study, time to plan, time to rest. I didn't waste time on activities that didn't take me toward my goals. Do an audit of your time. Write down everything you do during a week. See how much time you spend on productive activities and how much time you waste on distractions. Cut everything that doesn't add value to your life. Use free time to learn, to plan, to build something that will generate income in the future. And stop trading time for money forever. While you sell your hours, you have a limit on how much you can earn. But when you create systems that generate income without your constant presence, you break that limit. Build assets that work for you even when you're sleeping. The sixth principle is honor God and people. This isn't just morality, it's strategy. I honored God by recognizing that everything I had came from Him. I honored my parents by following the principles they taught me. I honored my commitments by keeping what I promised. And this opened doors of provision and protection that no money could buy. Be honest in your business. Treat your employees well. Pay your bills on time. Keep your contracts, because your reputation is your most valuable asset. And a good reputation takes years to build, but can be destroyed in minutes. And give. Always give. Give your time to help someone. Give your knowledge to teach someone. Give your money to bless someone. Not because you're obligated, but because you understand that generosity is an investment. What you plant in others' lives always comes back multiplied to your life. The seventh and final principle is be patient and consistent. I gathered little by little, day after day, year after year. I didn't try to get rich in a week. I planned to get rich in a lifetime. And the difference between the two is abysmal. Haste is the enemy of prosperity. Desperation is the father of bad decisions. Anxiety is the mother of wrong investments. Be patient with the process. Trust the system. Maintain discipline even when you don't see immediate results. Because the truth is that wealth is like a tree. You plant a seed today and see nothing. You water tomorrow and still see nothing. You care for it the following week and still see nothing. And you might be tempted to give up, thinking the seed was bad, the soil was bad, you were bad. But if you keep caring, if you keep watering, if you keep being patient, one day you'll see a small sprout. And if you keep caring for that sprout, it will become a sapling. And if you keep caring for that sapling, it will become a tree. And when it becomes a tree, it will bear fruit for the rest of your life. That's the difference between those who get rich and those who stay poor. Those who get rich plant trees. Those who stay poor look for ready fruit. Those who get rich think in decades. Those who stay poor think in weeks. Those who get rich make sacrifices today to have freedom tomorrow. Those who stay poor make sacrifices tomorrow to have pleasure today. Now you have the plan. You have the principles. You have the map. But maps don't take anyone anywhere. Only journeys do. Knowledge without action is powerlessness. Information without implementation is illusion. Wisdom without application is waste. So stop looking for more information and start applying the information you already have. Stop looking for more formulas and start using the formula you just received. Stop looking for more motivation and start acting with the motivation you have now. Because in the end, the difference between you and a prosperous man isn't talent. It's not luck. It's not connections. It's decision. It's discipline. It's persistence. It's the courage to do today what others will want to do tomorrow when it's too late. The kingdom of prosperity is available to anyone willing to pay the entry price. And that price isn't money. It's character. It's wisdom. It's time well invested. It's right decisions made consistently. The question that remains is, will you pay that price? Or will you continue paying the price of not paying that price? Take a moment. Notice your surroundings. Breathe in deeply. Hear the silence that exists between my words and your reflections. Something changed in you during these last hours. Something awakened. A seed was planted in the soil of your consciousness. You are no longer the same man who started watching this video. That man believed prosperity was a matter of luck, miracle, working to exhaustion. This man you are now knows that prosperity is a matter of wisdom, strategy, conscious decisions. That man lived to impress others. This man chooses to live for himself. Transformation doesn't happen when you finish learning. It happens when you start applying. And what you discovered here are seeds that can grow for the rest of your life, if you allow them. Each principle I shared is like a tree that can bear fruit for decades, generations. But seeds need good soil to germinate. And good soil is your daily decision to live differently, to think differently, to act differently. The prosperity you seek isn't somewhere distant, waiting for you to find it. It's here, within your reach, waiting for you to become the type of person who deserves it. If you feel this conversation awakened something real in you, if you recognize this is just the beginning of a deeper journey, subscribe to this channel, because men who seek wisdom need to walk together. True kings don't rule alone. The question that remains isn't whether you can prosper. The question is whether you will choose to prosper. Because in the end, the only difference between a prosperous man and a poor man is the quality of decisions each makes when no one is watching.